Hello, everybody. Welcome back. My name is Micah. I'll be your astrologer for today. We are getting into, goodness, we are getting into Midas and Cancer today. I've already done a video talking all about Midas, the asteroid, and astrology. If you are looking for this asteroid in your chart, then it's going to be asteroid 1981. And so we've already done Midas through from Aries to Gemini. And so today we're doing Midas and Cancer. I think Midas and Cancer actually is going to be one that a lot of people can relate to at some point in their lives. Like, I think when I was doing like the notes for this video, I was like, yeah, I feel like even if you do not relate to this as an adult, every teenager, like, and we've all been teenagers at some point, every teenager can relate to this. We've all been essentially Midas and Cancer in our teenage years. And people with Midas and Cancer, essentially, this is just their everyday experience. so we're going to be getting all into that. And so, just kind of like as an overview, quick overview of what Midas is, it's where you kind of have the golden touch in astrology. And if you're conscious of that placement, then it can be where you can find recognition, where you can find fame, but it's also like where we need certain things that we need. Because Midas does come down to value, whether that value is monetary things or just kind of recognition from other people, fame, fortune, whatever, it's some sort of need. And Midas at its best is where we find those things. At its worst, it's when we start to value the wrong things and what consequences or what issues come up because of that. And so with Midas and Cancer, I think one of the biggest things is these people love to feel needed. And we will definitely get into that. But let's talk about the fields that they do really well in first. So, Midas and Cancer. Cancer is going to be about the home, it's about family. It's also ruled by the moon, so it can be a little bit about wandering, which is where I want to kind of start. And so, these people, I think, because they have that like wandering kind of like vibe, they really like to be somewhere where they are emotionally comfortable, like literally. And so they can do really well in fields or opportunities where they work from home. Or if they're not working from home, it just needs some to be somewhere where they are feeling like that's very familiar to them. Or we can even say that they just like to have control over whether or not they can wander in a space or not. And what better place to do that than in your own house? If it's not in their literal house, they want their office to feel like their house. I feel like Midas and Cancer people, their office space is very homey, maybe even like a bit cottage core, like very cozy, very like small or like, yeah, just like very warm. And so, another place that we can see Midas and Cancer doing really well is in home based businesses, whether it's them selling things out of their home. Like, I think the first thing that I think about with Midas and Cancer in home based businesses is like those businesses, like those small businesses or like those small family owned businesses, whether it's inside or outside the home. Like, I think they could do well in either one of those. But we could see them do really well with like those businesses where people like cook food and then sell plates outside of their house. That is such a Midas and Cancer thing. But also, I could see, just any kind of business where their home space or they've made their workspace inside of their house. Um, Something else I could see is like construction or like home improvement, flipping houses, real estate, interior design, even. I think Midas and Cancer could do really well in anything that has to do with the home space and making changes within those. I think they would do really well in. They do really, Cancer is very intuitive, and it does have to do with emotions on some level and emotional security and safety. And so I think that Midas and Cancer would also do really well in like therapy or like Reiki, tarot, astrology. Tarot, I would say more so than astrology, because astrology is interpretation, and it is definitely intuitive, but it's also like part math as well. And so I would say tarot, since tarot is like purely intuition and interpretation, I would say Midas and Cancer, like tarot would probably be my first pick for Midas and Cancer. Not saying that anybody with Midas and Cancer can't do astrology. It's just the first thing that comes to mind when I'm talking about like what I would say would be textbook Midas and Cancer. But we are all complicated beings, and so you could do whatever you want, friend. And so um, something else I could see with Midas and Cancer, as far as like fields that they could do really well in, is like cleaning services or like anything that has to do with like, if we want to even talk about like other fields that maybe you wouldn't expect, like I don't know, but like anything that has like family inheritance lawyers, I think Midas and Cancer would do really well in, um, because it has to do with like passing things down from the past or like some sort of ancestry work, even if we're not talking about like lawyers and things like that. But I do think that they would do really well with like family law or anything. Like you get the theme that I'm pulling on here. And so I could also see like, any sort of like domestic labor, like cleaning services, whether it be in office buildings or in like people's personal houses. um, I could see that as them doing really well in those fields for sure. Now, let's talk a little bit about their kind of everyday life. I said that these people really like to feel needed, and that's not always a bad thing. Everybody wants to feel essential or valued in some way. But Midas and Cancer, they might like tie emotional success to their self-worth. A lot of times these people are going to be the glue in the friend group, the family, even sometimes in the workspace. They'll be the glue for other people. And that is super noble of them. There is a downside to that, and we'll get to that in just a second. But something else that we want to kind of like pay attention to is that sometimes they can really gold plate the past, because the moon and Cancer have a lot to do with emotional memory. And so they can really value relationships that are long gone and really harp on those. There can be a little bit of like emotional, like hoarding that's happening with Midas and Cancer, because a lot of times, because they like to give so much and they place their value sometimes on how much they're giving, sometimes these people will overgive to other people's, despite they can easily turn into a martyr, despite if the person is treating them well or not. So they can overgive, not just emotionally, but financially, mentally, spiritually, all of the ways you can overgive to somebody, and that can open them up to being taken advantage of. Now, resentment can definitely spring from that eventually. But when I was talking about sometimes they can gold plate certain relationships that have long been done, a lot of times those relationships are the ones that they have been the most mistreated in, because emotionally they remembered how much time and energy and even finances they put into that, trying to put value. A lot of times with Midas and Cancer, they can equate, unfortunately, um, how much they put in to like love and success of that relationship, even if the relationship was dysfunctional. Um, which also brings me to like a lot of times Midas and Cancer, when it comes to home, they really do value like that picture perfect family kind of vibe, even if on the inside it's emotionally draining. There's chaos in the house, like, but they want to appear a lot of times. Remember that the moon doesn't have its own light. It does rule on some level appearances. Um, it likes to have that appearance of a well gelling family unit. And that's why a lot of times these people get stuck being the glue for other people. And I don't want to say stuck, because a lot of times they're choosing that. And so, yeah, there can be like this, like they can put certain relationships on pedestals, and there can be like this feeling of, oh, they're the one that got away, even if the one that got away is not the person that has been treating them the best. And so you just want to be aware of that if you do have Midas and Cancer. Like I said, we have all experienced this, like in our teenage years at some point. Like if you were not a teenager like this, then you were one of the few, I feel like. But it's definitely something that they want to be very conscious of. Um, we can also, let me make sure that I am actually looking at my notes so that I'm staying on track here. So yeah, there can be this need to prove their self-worth by over giving, over functioning in a relationship, or picking up the slack for other people in a relationship, and making excuses even for a loved one, even if somebody else is looking in and saying, hey, this is not healthy. On top of that, I guess this is the last point I will bring up, that sometimes when there is too much value being placed on um, that nurturing of relationships, we can see, because part of Midas as like a, I guess like the way that I look at asteroids is like a fusion of planets that would give that same vibe as the asteroid. And so Midas is partially Venus. And so that's why I'm talking so much about relationships here, because Venus is not just relationships, it's self worth and money. So just to kind of clear that up. But we can see when they start to value the wrong things and put too much value on, I am worth what I am emotionally giving, how much emotional labor I'm putting in. There, like I said, resentment can grow, but also they can become emotionally bankrupt. Like when I say that, I automatically think about like the Vampire Diaries when they switch their humanity off. But it's not always what that means. What it really means is that they can become just very they can just kind of feel used, or like used up, and just kind of like feel hollow. They can become resentful, and not express it directly to the person that they're feeling resentful towards. They might not even know themselves. There might just be this very like vague feeling of resentment that they're acting out with certain people, and they haven't really taken time to actually slow down and think about it. They can definitely be the type to withdraw emotionally, while still technically being in the relationship. So they can be present but not present a lot of times, and just kind of be passive aggressive, and become a martyr. And so we can also see a lot of emotional shutting down, um, like in relationships as well. And they can become cold, sarcastic, and just definitely like emotionally unavailable, which is really interesting for Cancer, a sign that loves to be emotionally present and loves to be, just very nurturing to other people. And this is why I bring up the dependency versus codependency with Midas and Cancer, is there can, because they like to give so much, they kind of automatically feel like people should know, um how to reward them for what they give in a relationship. And so there can become this entitlement of, I've given you all of this, and so therefore you need to take care of me, kind of thing. Okay, the codependency is coming from, I need to be needed. But that is two sides that we can see with Midas and Cancer. And so people with Midas and Cancer just really have to be mindful of, are they, like, what is it that they value? Is that feeding into, um, you know, like the things that they are deeming as valuable? Are they feeding into their growth, or are they just kind of feeding into their emotional comfort zone, and like emotional comfort relationships, or even just the past, things that they have outgrown spiritually and emotionally? Like, are they just kind of operating in that same like kind of familiar zone? Um, but that is something that I think that's definitely needed to be, just kind of focused on. But other than that, I think I'm rambling right now. The sun is in Gemini, the moon is in Capricorn, and we're making a huge T square between Jupiter, Mercury, Saturn, and Neptune. And so rambling is my middle name at this point, along with a lot of other people. If you checked out my lunar lowdown on TikTok, by the way, if you're not following me on TikTok, what are you doing, friend? We do daily content on there, including the lunar lowdowns, where I give you a snapshot of what you should expect while the moon is in each sign. And so definitely check that out. I'm Eden I Astrology on TikTok. And if you're trying to reach me for that name, I'm on Discord. I'm not on Facebook and Instagram anymore. But other than that, you can also reach me for any consultations on edeniastro.com. The website is back up. I was doing a little bit of tinkering with it, and so it is back up now. But other than that, guys, I hope you have enjoyed this Midas and Cancer breakdown. Let me know if you have Midas and Cancer. I'd love to hear from you. Other than that,